All right, so most of my full self-driving videos are done live where I record the audio while I'm literally there driving, but this was a clip that I just happened to record while driving with no voiceover, and look at the road. It is filled with snow. Now, this is while I was up in Canada. I was on version 12.5.4.2, so this is one of the last drives I had before I eventually got 12.6. So this is the last drive that I'll feature here on my channel with 12.5 or with this older version. But I have to say that I was heavily impressed with how it handled with how covered the road was. Now you'll see here in the beginning, it was covered for a little bit and then it starts to clear up. So this of course is fairly easy driving with the line on the left side for the car to kind of create some sort of map around it to understand where it's driving. But as you'll see, once we get to around the 2-minute mark, the entire road is pretty much completely covered and the car does a good job. Now in this scenario, basically everything is up against me. I have a car with hardware 3. I am running older software 12.5. I also have, of course, nighttime road, so it's like 12:30 at night. There's barely any help from street lights or anything like that. It's just my car with the headlights. Of course, it's snowing. You can't see the actual ground, so literally everything was up against me at this time, and I had a good 2 minutes where the car did a good job at driving on this highway at about 60 miles an hour while the snow was completely covering the road. So again, once we get to about the 2-minute mark is where things will really start to get tough. Now, for this drive while I was up in Canada, I did one on the way up and it handled it flawlessly, right? There was no snow whatsoever. But once the snow started coming down, I knew that I wanted to give it a try to see how it would perform. Now, you'll see kind of in the video, it might be a little bit hard to tell, that the car starts to kind of sway to the left and to the right a little bit because it couldn't tell exactly where the lines were. Now, in this case, if I'm driving, if I'm the one that's actually going to be on the steering wheel and not using full self-driving, typically I would just kind of follow the lines of the car in front of me. So you'll notice on the road that there's actually two little lines that kind of show where the previous or the prior tires were of the car in front of me. So I usually would follow that. I would use some other cues like on the side of the road, look for any shrubbery, or I might look for any trees, or I might look for any reflectors that help me understand where the lines of the road are. But typically I'm driving like in the middle of the road because I don't want to go off to the right or off to the left. Up here in this area near Ottawa and kind of northern New York, you get a lot of snow from the lake effect, and you can see right now is really where the snow starts to build up. Now, to my eyes, especially looking at this video, I can kind of see that middle line. Unfortunately, the camera I'm using is just not great at nighttime. This is the Action 5 Pro, and I think that it's at like 25,000 ISO, so it's not the best video. But looking at the road, you can see now the lines have pretty much completely disappeared, but the car does a really good job at understanding the area around it. You can tell right there on the screen that it can still see relatively the line on the right side as well as the left side. For me personally, when I'm doing this type of driving, as I said, I'm following those two lines in the middle of the road that were the tires, the tire marks from the car in front of me, but the car doesn't know that. The car doesn't know to follow those two tire marks, so instead it's trying to kind of predict and tell what's around it. Now, I will have to say that in this scenario, I only let it self-drive by itself for about 2 minutes, and then I eventually ended up taking over just for safety reasons. So this video is more of like, I don't know, a proof of concept. It's more of just being able to showcase what full self-driving is able to do right now with very low visibility. Now, I think it's a little bit of a different story if there were other cars on the road. I think that the car uses other vehicles to help determine where it should be driving, but in this case, it was just me. There's nobody behind me, there's nobody in front of me, nobody to the sides, and I'm actually really impressed with how well the car was able to keep up its speed. So yeah, that pretty much is it right there. That's where the video ends. I ended up taking over control there as the car really started to move from side to side, but I thought that was a really good example of how good full self-driving is at driving in the snow when it can't see the road. It was pretty remarkable.